What you're about to hear isn't political theater. It's a direct warning about what happens when the rule of law is replaced by fear. In this exchange, Representative Julie Johnson confronts Kristi Noem with a simple but devastating truth.
Chairman, I just want to go back to a previous statement by one of our colleagues, Governor Biggs. He said that Democrats have not tried to de-escalate the situation. You know, after the brutal murder of Charlie Kirk, which was domestic terrorism, okay, we tried to de-escalate. After the assassination attempt against the president, which was domestic terrorism, I was appointed to the task force to investigate that assassination attempt. We tried to de-escalate. After the anti-Semitic attack in Colorado, in which you put forward a resolution that included language about ICE's favorable role in that. 75 Democrats voted for that resolution, even though there was no reason to put that in there, but you did it to try to put us on the board. So this idea that that Democrats have said nothing, that we haven't tried to de-escalate, it's just not true. It's just not true. Now, it's not like you guys have any credibility on de-escalation. I mean, literally, we're not the ones who told tens of thousands of people to show up to the Capitol and run in here like a mob. And now you all tell people it never happened. You know, like, oh, that's not what the deal was. It's not like every day there isn't some sort of tweet that just escalates and escalates and escalates. And so, listen, I hope one day we could have a hearing on de-escalation. I would love to participate in a hearing on how we together de-escalate. But looking at one party and saying, you don't de-escalate, I mean, that's literally this dialogue on how we do bring down the temperature together. You know, I want to, we heard about this domestic terrorism thing, right? Domestic terrorism. That was the first thing we heard. I have a question. This is the person who within minutes of the shooting, went on TV and called it domestic terrorism. What, is she hiding her face like her ICE agents now? She can't show her face either? By the way, is this what the $800 billion went to? Every day we see her after there's some new tragedy in Homeland, she's wearing a different outfit with a different hat. I mean, come on, guys, she looks ridiculous. She's not just an embarrassment to the country. She's an embarrassment to you and the president. Okay, she deserves to be removed from her job by the president, and if not impeached. Not just for her complete failures in Homeland, but her destruction of FEMA. She's not even running the department. You guys know this. You guys know she's not running Homeland. Your governors and you all, when you need your FEMA money, you don't call Noem, you call Corey. You know she's not running the place. She's a complete and utter embarrassment. By the way, every Homeland Secretary has come in front of this committee once a Congress. I'd like to know the date she's coming. When is she coming?
When is she coming? When is she coming?
When is she coming? By the way, do you know Pam Bondi has not come in front of this committee? Do you know she's the only secretary to not appear in front of a committee yet? When is she coming? What's the date on the calendar that she's coming? You know what? Let's make it easy. I want to make a motion to subpoena Pam Bondi.
Second.
To this committee.
Third, fourth, fifth.
How much are we going to...
The gentleman is not recognized for that motion. However, the chair will advise as to the Attorney General coming for, as they do routinely.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. But where is the Attorney General, the only secretary to not appear, okay, in front of a committee? The only one. We're into year 2 of this Congress, and we've not had the Attorney General in front of this committee. How much are we going to weaken Article 1 of the Constitution while you guys remain in power. I watch you twist yourself into pretzels trying to defend this, running away from previous statements, disagreeing with yourself, trying to defend the crap that's happening. And so I'll make a motion again to subpoena Pam Bondi in front of this committee.
Second.
Yes, third, fourth, fifth.
The chair will again.
Julie Johnson directly confronts DHS Secretary Kristi Noem over what Johnson describes as systemic abuses by immigration enforcement agencies and a fundamental breakdown of the rule of law. Rather than framing the issue as a partisan or ideological disagreement, Johnson grounds her argument in constitutional principles, legal standards, and first-hand observations, arguing that current enforcement practices are actively violating due process and civil rights. Johnson begins by addressing what she sees as an escalating climate of fear across the country. She explains that this fear is not limited to undocumented immigrants, but extends to lawful residents, American citizens, and even law enforcement officers themselves. According to Johnson, this atmosphere is driven by rhetoric coming from the highest levels of government and filtering downward into enforcement behavior. She warns that such fear is dangerous because it erodes trust, destabilizes communities, and increases tension between the public and law enforcement. At the center of Johnson's critique is Secretary Noem's claim that DHS is restoring the rule of law. Johnson flatly rejects this assertion and explains that the rule of law rests on two core pillars, probable cause and due process. She argues that neither is being consistently respected. Johnson states that individuals are being detained or arrested based solely on appearance, particularly skin color, without any individualized suspicion or evidence of wrongdoing. She emphasizes that this practice is incompatible with constitutional standards and cannot be justified under any legitimate interpretation of lawful enforcement. Johnson further explains that due process, the right to a fair hearing and legal protections before being deprived of liberty, is being routinely denied. She describes cases in which individuals are detained for days without hearings, access to legal review, or meaningful opportunities to challenge their detention. According to Johnson, these practices represent a severe departure from constitutional norms and threaten the legal protections that apply to everyone in the country, not just immigrants. To support her claims, Johnson cites her visit to an ICE detention facility outside Dallas. There, she observed that more than 70% of detainees were classified at the lowest threat level and had no criminal history whatsoever. This directly contradicts repeated claims by the administration that enforcement efforts are narrowly focused on serious criminals or national security threats. Johnson argues that these findings expose a gap between official rhetoric and operational reality. The script also highlights the human consequences of these policies. Johnson recounts multiple incidents in which American citizens were detained by ICE despite clearly identifying themselves as U.S. citizens. Some were allegedly assaulted, suffering broken ribs, brain injuries, and other physical harm. In one case, an elderly man was reportedly knocked to the ground after asserting his citizenship, only to be detained anyway. Johnson stresses that such actions represent an alarming disregard for both civil rights and basic human dignity. While Johnson acknowledges that many ICE and Border Patrol agents perform their duties professionally and lawfully, she draws attention to the existence of bad actors who exceed their authority.